individual, and I've been connecting with her off of LinkedIn for about a year and a half, probably longer than that, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, crazy how time flies by.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'd like to make this interactive. If you have any questions for Sandra, feel free to leave a comment. We'll do our best to highlight that comment if we can. If you feel that this conversation will be insightful for people you know, please share this link with them. And we are also not just going live on LinkedIn, but YouTube and Twitter. So Sandra, can you tell us about yourself? What do you do and where are you from?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Makita, for having me. Great to see everyone on this beautiful Super Bowl Sunday morning. So, I am the proud founder of Invest in You LLC, where we really bring 3 pillars of training into the world, starting with personal development, communication, and leadership training as well. So, I have various programming from 5-week workshops to half-day or full-day programs that can help in either of those 3 pillars in that under the big umbrella of personal development, and really just enjoy helping people become better versions of themselves. And I'm actually based originally from the state of Wisconsin, but actually based out of the Kansas City area. So go Chiefs.
That's awesome. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm about to go to a Miami Heat game. They're playing against the Celtics, so hopefully it'll
Nice.
be a good game for whichever team you're shooting for.
Awesome.
So today's conversation is about living with intention, living our most abundant self, and tapping into that potential that we don't necessarily have a chance to do because we're so caught up in working or helping our family, etc. Can you share some tips and easy to do things that people can start doing to start living with intention through storytelling?
Yes, absolutely. Great, really great question. And I love storytelling. Who doesn't love a good story? And I think of some of my favorite movies because truly movies do share stories about people that have lived or figurative, imaginatory people as well. And when it comes to storytelling and really bringing something alive, I first and foremost think of the words you use. And even just like as I was working out this morning, but usually when someone says, "How are you?" I feel like the default answer is good. And most times, like that kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But what if you use words like excellent or exquisite or hungry or bored? That could liven up even the story of what a back and forth conversation could be. So I feel like the words you use and using them with intention, right? Because I feel like even just saying good feels like I said, just kind of like default. So being intentional with the words that you're using when you're sharing about a story or when you're sharing about how your day is going. I feel like words are really important, and also the volume at which you share and the speed at which you share as well when you're talking. It's and I'm kind of still playing around, but like when do you like whisper or you say something very softly, people usually lean in because it's like, wait, what did you say? Like hanging on to what you're sharing. And if you're trying to really prove a point and you want to level up the volume of your voice, that can also have an impact to people as well. And lastly, I feel like the speed at which you talk too, because sometimes slowing down or allowing for pause or silence can be really powerful in a conversation as well when you're wanting to prove a point or when you're wanting to potentially give life to something. Pause, because it allows people to think about what you're saying or what you're sharing. So those 3 tidbits, I would say.
I absolutely agree. I can speak for myself that people that articulate themselves in storytelling, even if I'm just in a meeting, I'm drawn to every word. I actually am excited to connect with these people because, as you said, it's not a blanket statement of good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a story, and Especially after the past 3.5 years that we've all gone through, I think that little touch of human connection actually happens through storytelling. And I'm sure you probably have favorite comedians or people that, like public figures that are in interviews and they just tell
Mhm.
stories. I think those are the people that people really vouch for when they're being canceled or they have a product coming out. I don't know if you wanted to
Agreed.
attest to that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Um, and you just said like being human, right? I feel like,
Mhm.
and being our most authentic self. That's something else that I feel like, even as you were kind of kicking off our conversation, being authentic with how you move, how you talk, how you present yourself. And also, the words that you use and the stories that you tell, to your point, can really hook people in, and share a lesson, share a point, share a piece of inspiration, or potentially like resilience of overcoming. I think when I think of like Rocky Balboa, or like the
Mhm.
boxing movies, right? I feel like it's that sense of just like getting knocked down, knocked down, knocked down, but then you push through and you work through and you overcome, and it's that, like, that one arm up of just like, I won, I overcame. Because I mean, life is just going to throw you stuff that you're
Yeah.
not expecting, that were unplanned, and you could totally be derailed. But just, seeing the silver linings and what happens in personal and professional, life, those are stories that you can use to help motivate and inspire others to overcome potentially something you don't know that they're going through.
Absolutely. Now, I believe that the world goes round successfully with human connections. I do
Mhm.
believe that we all have some time that we need for sanctuary, whether it's you're going to the church or you're going to the beach or you're at your favorite forest. But I do also believe that relationships really make the world a much richer place to be in. For all of those introverts or maybe people on the line who are in their bubble and maybe they just hang out with certain people in their class,
Mhm.
as far as financially, or they just have this kind of new perspective of, well, that person's not on my level. So I don't know if I necessarily want to hang out with the janitor at work or something like that. Can we
Mm.
speak to having these real connections and how that adds to a more intentional and abundant life?
That's a really good question. The first word that comes to mind for me is curiosity. And even with the janitor example, I know I'm blanking on the gentleman's name, but there was a janitor that had like invested, his savings, and ended up actually retiring, or I don't know if he unfortunately passed away, but he was a millionaire. And you don't know, in terms of like, you just can't judge a book by its cover, because you don't know the inner workings and the threads that make up that person. So curiosity is the first word that comes to mind. And it's something that John Maxwell, because I'm in process of finishing up my certification with the John Maxwell team, um, is one of the laws he talks about in the 15 laws of growth is curiosity. And I feel like as children, we're very curious about things just naturally, because everything is new. And as we mature and get into our adulthood, I feel like that curiosity is dulled because of what life throws at us, or potentially the mundane of every day. And I think just making a decision to be curious about learning about someone, and also the questions that you could potentially ask. So I'm going to be heading out to a conference in Florida in March, which I'm excited about. When you said beach, I was like, man, I can't wait to go on the beach. It's the first thing I'm going to do when I get off the plane. But is what types of questions can you, like, even if it's just two, that could stem a genuine conversation? And again, kind of sprucing it up, how we were talking about like the words and the vernacular that you use, like, instead of saying like, well, what do, you could ask, how did you get to this point in your life, whether, career or potentially like if you're on a biking team, let's just say, or a volunteer initiative. I think that's something that's kind of key of something I've been trying to do a little bit more of is volunteering. But how did you get into this role? What was your journey like getting here? Or tell me a little bit about what you find joy in, or what are like 3 words you could describe how your week is going, and then kind of pinning off of that. So just having a couple questions can stem that are not yes or no, so that they're open-ended, that can stem a story of someone that you're wanting to get to know. But yeah, I think just starting with having a sense of curiosity and living your life that way can open doors and beautiful conversations.
I agree. I like to ask men and women, like, how did it feel to experience that? How did it feel to be on the mountain? And
Mm,
in addition to your questions, those feeling statements, I think a lot of people don't know how they feel. We don't really live in a society, or we weren't really necessarily taught sometimes at home or in school to feel anything.
mm,
And I think that's where a lot of mental health issues come in. But I find that when I ask people, how did you feel when XYZ happened? It kind of, I've seen men turn into little boys. Or if I acknowledge their feelings, even they're not saying it. Just the other day, I was in a meeting with the senior tech guy, and I could tell he was feeling some overwhelm in having to do
mm,
this project with me. And I said, why don't we just reschedule this chat? I know you probably feel very overwhelmed with all these disaster recovery projects and such. And he just got quiet, and he was just like, okay, like he froze. He didn't know what to say. But now when I chat with him, it's almost as if he talks to me as a friend, and he tells me things he probably shouldn't be telling me. So I find that I find that those feeling questions, even for like the most alpha male, can really
wow.
get people to just be drawn into you and want to open up and probably share things they probably shouldn't. But it's that level of trust because you're actually asking them something nobody asks them, or most people
Mm.
don't.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And
Mhm.
it may have felt so simple for you, but
Yeah,
in ways that he probably didn't feel heard without
yeah,
saying anything,
that's
because
right.
you were intuitive with his feelings, which is really powerful. And
Yeah.
that just goes to show, I mean, even just like the work that I'm sure you've had to put into yourself for you to even get
Mhm.
to that position of
Yeah.
intuition in self, but also intuition with the dynamics of what's going on around you. So that's incredibly powerful. I feel like if more people kind of leaned into that and like learned, we probably wouldn't have as much conflict as we do today. But
I
yeah,
think so too.
that's incredible.
So, what other points would you like to share with us, Sandra? With John Maxwell, I learned about. I actually think I saw him on stage about 6 years ago. It was
Nice.
like him and some other um, authors that were on stage. What other points do you want to share with the audience that they generally might not be aware of right now?
Mm. Yeah, I think staying on the lines of communication. So one of my favorite books from John Maxwell is Everyone Communicates, but Few Connect. And he
Mm,
breaks down, I want to say about like 12 different aspects of connection, of actually creating and bridging connections through communication. And
mhm.
within each chapter, he actually talks about how to implement them on a one-on-one situation, on a group situation, and then being speaking in front of an audience. And I feel like so much of communication isn't actually verbal.
Yeah.
It's actually listening, to your point you even just made, to like the intuitive nonverbal actions or responses that someone may have. And I just feel like listening, and I'm sure we've probably all heard, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So utilizing, I feel like taking time to like genuinely hear someone for what they're saying, and even what isn't said. So I guess like kind of going back to the nonverbal and versus verbal, because within like listening to tonality, listening to kind of the speed, even just like kind of coming full circle with what I was sharing before of like the words you use, your tonality or your volume, and the speed at which you talk, really leaning into that. If, you know, if you are just in a meeting or a one-on-one conversation with someone, uh, showing active signs of engaged listening is really important when it comes to communication, whether it's repeating back with what someone said. That's something that I find myself doing a lot. So it's like, okay, what I'm hearing you say is this truly what you mean, or did you mean this?
Mm.
Will ensure that they know you're listening, but also that element of them feeling heard. Because I'm sure we can all relate to being in a conversation where maybe just the person we're talking to just isn't in the conversation, like mentally, to hear what you have to say. And I feel like another element of that is just like self-awareness and like, hey, you know, how am I feeling? You know, do I need to like get up and just go for a walk to clear my head in order for me to feel grounded right now?
Mhm.
Yeah, so just kind of like sidebar there, but I feel like so much of communication truly is listening, ensuring that the person feels heard, because other elements, I guess, going into that creating connection and communication is there's the messenger, the message, and then the receiver of the message, but then even like sub points within that, because we we could all go to a same movie but experience something different because of our life, because of our reality. So even in a conversation, ensuring that, you know, a message has been received and understood the way it wanted to be conveyed and wanted to be received is on the same page. So I know I hit a lot of sub points there, but I just feel like active listening is just really important, um, in communication, one-on-one, in meetings, you know, even in a large audience. Like, your audience is communicating with you. You know, if you're speaking on stage, you can tell.
Yeah, all of those are great points. And I also believe that to what you're saying with that connection, it can also eliminate errors too, especially
Mm.
if, like you said, I think those cues in meetings when somebody's saying something, there could be some hesitation in their voice and just that question of, sorry, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention? I hear something in your voice, and just
Mm.
even bringing up those indicators, and then you can actually get more information from people. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but when you're not in the room, people will actually describe you as being super efficient, or they're very, very organized, they're meticulous. And, you know, I can give anything to Sandra and she'll run with it. I don't have to worry. I don't have to micromanage her. She's
Mhm.
just on the ball all the time. So those are really great points.
Yeah, super
And
powerful.
any last points that you wanted to offer? I know that you're learning so much with this program, and even just in your personal life, you've relocated recently, and you're in a new state, and you're thriving to be continue your business and stuff. Is there anything else personally that you want to share with people, maybe that you've learned or that you can pass along that again people might not necessarily have access to right now?
Mm, another really great question. Um, I would say a simple and small call to action for everyone that I feel like could make an impact even in just, like, one person's life is being kind of calling back to that intentionality piece, is smiling more
Mhm.
and not using good when someone asks how you're doing. Like, think of a couple other words that you could like use on when someone asks you how you are, because that could spark up a really meaningful conversation, just to kind of bring it full circle. Because I feel like it's those simple things that maybe feel like not important or not impactful that really could be impactful. And I've got a really small but yet simple story that I could share. I was this past week I caught up with a girlfriend of mine that I haven't seen probably in about a year and a half, but we just like always kept in touch. And we had finished up our walk and I was on my way home driving, and, you know, I pulled up to a red light, just had a really good conversation. I felt good with where I was in that moment of sitting in my car. And I look to my right and I make eye contact with the other driver next to me. And I just smiled at her. And just the way she smiled back at me just felt very genuine in that moment. And I don't know how her day was going. You know, I don't know how she was feeling within her car, right? How her experience was that day. But I know I was able to make an impact on someone because I had that simple, subtle connection of just a smile. So I think it's those moments that I know I cherish, and it's something that I had to work on to be diligent and intentional in my life. However, I do feel like it's those moments that can make a difference in someone else's life because you just don't know where they're at in their journey.
Yes, and that brings back our conversation earlier about that interconnection that I think has lost. I'm here in Florida visiting family, and I just find before the pandemic, when I was here, whether there was tourism season or not, it was always busy. People were at the games, people were at the museums, the art galleries, and I'm not seeing a lot of people. And I asked my brother what's going on, and he's just like, the pandemic financially impacted South Florida, and not a lot of people spent a lot for Christmas, so a lot of people are pulling back, whether they have money or not. But it's like you said, that little, what you're just driving and you look and you smile at somebody, it adds that human connection. And as you said, you have no idea what that lady's going through. That smile alone could have brought her until the end of the year. We just never know, right? So
Yeah, truly.
So, Sandra, how can people connect with you? Do you have a website other than LinkedIn? How can other people reach out to you if they have questions or they want to work with you directly?
Absolutely. So I would say at this point, LinkedIn is probably the best route of making a connection. So feel free to reach out, send me a direct message. I love setting up coffee or tea connections virtually or in person. So LinkedIn at this point would be the best route of communication, and I welcome any engagement on my posts. I try my best to get 2 posts out there every week. Sometimes I hit that goal, sometimes I don't, but we're all a work in progress. So, but would love to connect with anyone via LinkedIn.
And anyone watching the replay or anybody watching now, if you have any questions that didn't come up during this conversation or during the replay, leave them below. Tag Sandra if you want to have a direct answer to her, and we will do our best during the week to get back to you. Thank you for your time today, Sandra. I'd love to do this again next month if it's a monthly thing, if you're open to it, because I think there's so much that you know and that I know, and we can just kind of help people on LinkedIn.
Agreed.
So.
Agreed. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for this conversation this morning.
You're welcome. Happy Sunday, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.